You're tuned in to Shake, Rattle, and Goal, the official podcast of your Springfield Thunderbirds.
Osmanski, a one-timer deflected side of the goal. Alexandrov scores!
Hosted by Matt Baker and Steve Forney. A show that's everything Springfield hockey, with interviews including players, coaches, and staff.
The Springfield Indians repeat as the Calder Cup champions.
Listen to this podcast on all major streaming platforms and wherever you download podcasts.
In his first year at the helm, Kevin McDonald and Drew Bannister have the Teamers in the Calder Cup Finals.
Watch the podcast on the official Shake, Rattle, and Goal YouTube page at SRG Podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Matt Baker and Steve Forney.
All right, welcome into episode number 4 of the Shake, Rattle, and Goal podcast alongside Matt Baker. I am Steve Forney, and for the first time in our show's history, we are proud to say that this episode of the SRG podcast is proudly brought to you by our friends at White Lion Brewing right in Tower Square in downtown Springfield and their new location in Amherst. White Lion is your go-to pregame spot for all Thunderbirds games. We are so thrilled, Matt, to finally have not only a sponsor here for our show, but a company that is so involved in the 413 and the Springfield community. I think that's something that we focused on since day one.
That's it. I mean, it's local supporting local, and we're proud to have White Lion aboard and looking forward to a wonderful partnership here.
Yeah, and some may notice if you're watching on YouTube, our sort of presentation looks a little different because thanks to White Lion, we are able to upgrade our software and not just be using Zoom. Now we're actually using professional podcasting software. So big thank you to our friends at White Lion, and we'll be hearing a lot more from them. And they even mentioned possibly recording some of our shows down at White Lion in the future once the season gets rolling. So folks have that to look forward to as well. We have a lot to get to today. We're coming off of a couple of Blues preseason games that very much had Thunderbirds all over the roster, potential Thunderbirds all over the roster. So we are going to get into a lot of that. Matt, I think we wanted to start here, though, looking at some of the events, special games, special dates on the calendar that the Thunderbirds have put together for the season. If you want to at least take a good look at some of the earlier stuff that we have to look forward to.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, and for anybody listening, if you want a full rundown of all the dates, if you like to plan out what games you're going to for the whole season, you could check it out on the Thunderbird website. They have all their promotional and specialty games already scheduled and planned out. But we did just want to highlight a few, as we are just a few 2 weeks away from opening night. October 14th is opening night against the Wolfpack. Puck drops at 7:05. Sunday, October 15th is the Kids Club opener. I know that's a big hit for my two kids. If you have anybody 12 years or under, get them into that Kids Club. It's a wonderful, wonderful program there they do for the kids. But so the Kids Club opener is Sunday the 15th against Providence at 3:05. We've got the annual Octobird Fest game, October 28th. That is against Providence, and it's also their hockey puck bottle opener giveaway. November 4th, big game, Tommy Cross night. First 2,500 fans will receive a Tommy Cross bobblehead, brought to you by Stop and Shop. That is a 7:05 puck drop against the Phantoms. November 8th is their school day game, again against the Phantoms. That's a 10:30 game. November 22nd, the Mayflower Marathon night versus Bridgeport. Throughout the month of November, the Thunderbirds will be collecting canned goods and donations, and then on the 22nd will be sort of their giveaway to the Mayflower Marathon, partnering with Rock 102. On November 25th, Hockey Fights Cancer Night versus the Utica Comets, another 7:05 puck drop. Their lavender jerseys will be donated to help benefit Bitsy's Army, our very own Will Bitton. That's his sort of go-to
charity. Yeah, it's like
charity. Thank you.
Yeah,
yes, sure. his charity. So that's it for October and November. So a lot of fun games. But again, if you want the full rundown, we'll try to update them every month or so just to keep you informed, but all the dates throughout the entire season can be found on the Springfield Thunderbirds webpage. Steve, are you able to go to that kids or not the kids, the school day game? Do you bring your high schoolers there? Are they able to get involved?
So it's interesting. Last year we did, because I didn't want to have to take a day off of work or have to find a replacement. So I halved it. I brought a bunch of my broadcasting students, and they shadowed a lot of the Thunderbirds personnel, which was great. So
awesome.
Kevin Johnson had one of my students. I had another one on the ice with a camera taking photos. Somebody was in the room, in the production room with Bob and those guys. So I'm going to hopefully do that again, because I don't want to have to take a day off of school. So as I said, let's try to double dip and get 2 paychecks out of that. So
there you go.
We're gonna try that again this year. I'll have seniors that week, so hopefully I can bring a handful of seniors down to the game.
Nice.
And same with the Mayflower Marathon. I like to bring my students down to MGM when Bax and Nagel are doing the Mayflower Marathon, so that they can, it incorporates radio, and
sure.
something that we teach, but also they can go down and create a news package based on the event that they're having, which is obviously for a great cause. So shout out to Bax and Nagel for doing their thing. And they're always so welcoming. Last year, they had some students go right on the air live, which was really cool. So I'm looking forward to both of those weeks. And, it's kind of tough timing. That game will always be right before Thanksgiving, but it's such a great event and a good partnership between the team and Rock 102 and Bax and Nagel. So those would be great. And again, I think the biggest thing that I take away from all these games is there's so many of them are for charities and for a good cause, supporting Mayflower, supporting Hockey Fights Cancer, getting the kids involved, again, community stuff. Right. And that's sort of the main goal here. So good stuff. And looking forward to the season start. I will say, you mentioned the jerseys, and this is off topic. The Hartford Wolfpack are finally going to create third jerseys that involve their secondary logo. Have you ever seen that thing? It's like a submarine. No. It's like a submarine with a wolf on the head. And it's on their helmets, but it's nowhere else. And every time guys get a penalty, I look at the helmet and I'm like, man, that logo is so cool. How come they don't use that? They are finally going to be incorporating their submarine wolf in some of their jerseys. So we'll see. Well,
there you go. Good for you, Wolfpack. Well done.
It's about time.
Welcome to 2023.
Seriously. So I'm sure we'll see plenty of Hartford coming up here once the season gets rolling. As we look towards the rosters being broken down, we did have a bunch of players get sent down to Springfield. I do anticipate in the next 24 hours or so we're going to have more. We are coming off of the preseason game the Blues had against the Dallas Stars, again loaded with Thunderbirds, and I will sort of direct Thunderbirds fans, if you don't follow him or take in his information yet, there's a guy, Lou Korac, Korac. He writes for the Hockey News. He is the St. Louis Blues sort of beat writer, and if you don't follow him on social, I highly recommend it. He's a good guy to follow on Twitter for live updates, especially during these kind of games. But he did have an article that came out this morning. Again, we're as we record, it's Sunday morning coming off of that game. And, the Blues fall 4-3 in overtime. I think Blues fans, based on the article that Lou wrote, are a little, here we go again, because they had sort of the same issues that they had in this preseason game. And guess it's preseason, but they had sort of the same issues that plagued them a lot last season. Lackluster third period, giving away breakaways in overtime. They sit 2-1-2 in the preseason. Colton Ellis was left on the hook, although according to what Lou writes, it's certainly not his fault. I mean, a breakaway from Jason Robertson in overtime, there's not much you can do. 2 goals though for Braden Shen, and some nice puck movement by the young guys. Matt Kessel had a nice assist. Lou, I'll just go right to his article here. He has a category called noticeable young players. Mm-hmm. He says, forward Zachary Bolduc and Zach Dean continue to get better and play well at this level. Dean helped set up Bolduc's first preseason marker. Defenseman Leo Loof, Matt Kessel, and Tyler Tucker were put in high-pressure situations. They were physical. Loof and Kessel each chipped in an assist on Shen goals. Kessel says, quote, I think I've got off to a good start, and I'm just trying to build on that every single day. Bolduc was quoted, everything's going well. Every game I'm playing, I'm getting more confident. I feel every game I'm making more plays with the puck, and I feel I have my place here. Lou Korak says goaltending was good again for the second preseason game. Jordan Binnington was solid. He played 2 periods, stopped 12 of 13 shots before giving way to Ellis, who was solid despite allowing 3 goals on 16 shots in 21 minutes. Braden Shen was quoted saying, we've got to be better in front of him. It comes in cold, makes some saves, gives us a chance. We just weren't good enough in front of him in the third period, and we stopped skating. So Colton Ellis was sort of thrust in there, and the Blues didn't really play well in front of him. Last thing here is it says Bitten is biting again. Sam Bitten in camp on a PTO dropped the gloves for the second time in as many games. The 23-year-old younger brother of Will Bitten fought Dallas's Roddick Fosca after a puck battle in the St. Louis defensive quarter. If you get a chance to see that fight, it was good. It was a good fight. I'll tell you, this kid is scrappy. He does a really nice job of. I haven't seen a lot of. I think maybe Bobby Farnham was the last guy I would see when you're grappling and you have the front of their jersey with one hand and you got the other hand cocked. The front hand that you have on the jersey, just throwing short jab. Bruins fans want Tread Frederick to do that. But it's amazing how he's able to get both these fights, just kind of get the other guy caught a little off guard by just with these jabs. And I love what I'm seeing from Sam Bitten from a physicality perspective.
I think he's going to need to bring that too. I mean, and I think too, a little bit, I have a brother. He's a younger brother of mine, and younger brothers always have to introduce themselves. Here I am. I'm not Will's brother. I'm Sam. And maybe this is how he's doing that. And I like it. I think Springfield's sort of, they're a physical team. They'll scrap, but they are missing that enforcer type that and Sam could turn out to be more than just that enforcer, but I like the fact he's not hesitant. He's looking to make a name for himself. He's looking to show scouts and the teams that I will do what is necessary to help us. And so good for him. Good for him.
And I mean, you have 2 sons. So I just on an observation, I think your younger son might be a little bit more physical than your older son.
Yeah, and you are absolutely right in that. So maybe it is the second child, the younger brother, always having to again stand your ground, make a name for yourself, introduce yourself for who you are. The other thing though that the article points out, here we are again. We're saying Zachary Bolduc and Zach Dean again. And it seems like, when we were introducing the prospects, these names came up. When we talked about the prospect highlight games a few weeks ago, again, these names popped up. So there's something to be said for you. If you can't get through a weekend of games without mentioning Zachary Bolduc and Zach Dean, they might have a spot. Maybe these are the guys going back and forth, up and down a little bit, like Nikita and Jake Neighbors were last year. Maybe it is the 2 Zachs going back and forth. They're still young and they still have a lot of work to work on their game, but so far so good. And I hope if they do come down to Springfield to start the season, I hope that they can continue this sort of hot start with the Blues and get rolling in Springfield.
Yeah, and I hope they keep their mind right, because you play really well at the NHL level in a preseason game, then you get sent down, and it's easy to get bummed out about it and say, well, I don't belong here, and you don't take it seriously. And we've seen that happen with players here in Springfield or in other organizations where they think they belong at the NHL level and they don't take the AHL seriously enough. I think Owen Tippett had a little bit of that when he first started. Now he's a full-time NHLer. So I think it's important that they both sort of recognize the situation. I do think if it's going to be one or the other, it's probably going to be Zach Dean, because he is a little bit older. He does have a lot more AHL experience, but we are going to get into sort of the roster breakdowns of both the Blues and the Thunderbirds. And it looks to me like there might be a little opening here at the center position down the middle. Just in real quick, Braden Shen, Kevin Hayes, Oscar Sundquist. And then that's kind of it in
Mhm.
terms of center positions for them. Then you're looking at Nicky Alexandrov. But if you put Oscar Sundquist on the fourth line, what I don't want to have happen is either one of these guys go up to St. Louis, be on the fourth line, and play like 10 minutes a night.
Sure.
If you're gonna play them, you got to give them more than fourth line minutes. So,
Mhm.
do you put them in the AHL on the top line playing 25 minutes a night, or do you try to slide them onto the third line, give them some power play time, let them kill some penalties, and give them 15 minutes a night or something like that? So, it's gonna be an interesting decision here for St. Louis. But yeah, both of these players, both the Zacks, I feel like we've been saying it for 4 episodes now.
Yeah.
These guys both look pretty legit.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. I mean, at some point, your name keeps coming up in in a positive manner. Good things are going to happen for them, and we've said this too before. Sure, we're a Springfield Thunderbirds podcast, and we want all the talent in Springfield, but at the end of the day, we do root for these athletes. We do root for these kids, and the ultimate goal is to get up there in St. Louis, and I think the future is bright for them.
Absolutely. So when we do look at some of the recent moves, there have been more than a handful of players that the Blues have already sent down. And just to sort of rattle them off here, and you let me know if any of them are surprises or you're looking forward to. But Mikhail Abramov, Tanner Dickinson, Drew Callen, Andre Heim, Mitch Holscher, Jeremy Biakabatuka. Is that Duzik? I think it's Duzik. I got to learn that guy's name before this. Duzak. I got to learn his name before the season starts. Marc-Andre Gaudette, Austin Osmanski, Hunter Skinner. Adam Gaudette cleared waivers yesterday, so he will actually head to Springfield. Goaltenders Will Cranley and Zarenko. We anticipate Colton Ellis coming down in the next, I would say, probably 48 hours or so. So a lot of names there, a lot of guys that are familiar. Does any of those sort of stick out to you, or guys that you're looking forward to seeing play, Matt?
Well, I mean, I'm kind of surprised Skinner was sent down in the first round of cuts. I thought maybe he would have had a little bit. I think ultimately, I expected him to come down to Springfield, but I guess if there was a surprise in these sort of first round of cuts, these first send downs, Skinner being in that first round was a little bit surprising to me. He's physical. He made an impact when he was out there, but I'm happy to see him. I like Hunter Skinner. We talked about him last episode. The goalie situation is interesting to me. I mean, there's a lot of good talent that'll be playing in between the pipes in Springfield. We talked about this too a few weeks ago after Zarenko's dominant performance in the prospect game over there. If there's an injury to Binnington or Hofer, if Zarenko goes up, we still have Subban, Cranley,
Ellis, yeah.
Ellis, and so there's a lot of good goaltending in around the Thunderbirds, which is good to hear. Are you happy to see Biakabatuka officially sent down?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy he's on the roster for sure. I can't wait to see that guy's name. But yeah, I mean, and real quick on the goaltending, it'll be interesting to see if St. Louis decides to just keep 3 goaltenders. And that's not necessarily unheard of, but if they decided to keep Hofer, Binnington, and Subban, the Thunderbirds would still have Zarenko, Ellis, and Cranley. And that's not like the worst case scenario. It's not like the Thunderbirds are totally screwed. And, Colton Ellis, he's 22 years old. He's a 3rd round draft pick. So it's not like they're going to have to do what they did last year and go out and get like 38-year-old Garrett Sparks to fill in some games. I think that they're going to have enough guys on the roster, and not just guys, like I said, that are just there to be there. Colton Ellis is a guy you can develop. Zarenko is a guy you can develop. I think that goaltending and another thing Lou Korak talked about in that article was the goaltending and how that's sort of been the most solid takeaway so far in the preseason is that all the goalies that have played have actually been pretty well. So I think up and down the chart in both St. Louis and Springfield, I think goaltending is going to be the biggest strength of this organization.
We did, Steve, we spent a lot of time talking about the back line, the defense here. How do you think that's going to shake out in St. Louis? And down, filtering down here to Springfield. I mean, we know they're going to be young here in Springfield. We talked about, is this time for Kessel to step up and eliminate some of those, I want to be nice here, but just wrong place, wrong time plays, those unforced turnovers at the blue line. How do you think this is going to shape out in St. Louis and then trickle down to Springfield?
Yeah, so I went today through the St. Louis roster, and I just I made a list of guys that are guaranteed to be in St. Louis, like no questions asked, and then sort of adjusted the roster from there. And I came up with 2, 4, 6, 8. I came up with 9 defensemen that I think should be guaranteed locks for St. Louis, and that's a lot of guys. I think they just have a ton of guys in the back end. And real quick, Colton Parayko, Torrey Krug, Justin Falk, Nick Leddy, Marco Scandella, Robert Bertuzzo. There's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6 guys, so that would fill out your roster.
There's your roster.
That doesn't even include Scott Perunovich, Callie Rosen, or Tyler Tucker. So there's 3 guys that are all capable NHLers that are sort of on paper would be on the outside looking in. Now, I mean, I don't know if they're going to trade anybody. I know Justin Falk's been beat up a little bit this preseason. So is Torrey Krug. You can probably anticipate at least 2 of those guys fighting injuries throughout the year. I mean, just based on their recent history, the guys that have fought injury a lot. So maybe that's why they're so loaded. But then when we look at Springfield, that list is huge too, because you're looking at Matt Kessel, Josh Jacobs, who's hurt, Wyatt Kalynuk, Hunter Skinner, Marc-Andre Gaudet, Leo Loof, Anton Malmstrom, Biaka Batuka, Butchinger. So it's like, holy smokes, like there's only 6 positions for crying out loud. So, I wouldn't be surprised if Biaka Batuka ended up in the ECHL just based on like the numbers, just based on the numbers game. So, I think that in terms of bodies, they're way more loaded on D than they are at the forward position throughout the organization. And it'll be interesting to see kind of how it shakes out. A lot of times towards the end of preseason is when a lot of trades are made. A lot of guys get moved. I know even I go back to it just because I'm a fan, but the Bruins fans are already now talking about possibly trading Matt Grzelcyk because they have the young guys that they want to see play more. And I'm wondering if, you look at guys like Bertuzzo, Scandella, Nick Leddy, guys that are older but are also expensive. Yeah. If some of those guys are on the possibility of getting moved, and again, you're probably only going to get 50 cents on the dollar at this time of the year if you're making a move like that. But if you're trying to free up cap space and you want to give, somebody like Perunovich or Tucker or even Matt Kessel, if you wanted to get them more involved in the NHL game, I think you're going to have to move a body. So, right. So it's a little interesting.
This is a surprising aspect of this team for me. Just a few short weeks ago, I really thought this would be a big question mark. But then, like what you just did, when you actually finally write it out on paper, and you're like, "Whoa, actually, there are some solid names on these lists, and where are you going to put them?" It goes to me. I do think some of these younger guys will get sent down to the ECHL. And then you have to think trades will be made. And this is a prime time for the NHL to make those trades and to strengthen the weaknesses. And it's, I think, a good problem to have when you're trying to figure out the pairings of the back line. You have options of who plays better with who. But definitely some tough choices still to be made, I think, on both rosters.
Yeah, and especially when you start doing, left shot D versus right shot D, offensive guy versus defensive guy, when you start sort of putting them all together, meshing them all together, it's a lot more convoluted than just, again, just writing them all out. So, yeah, we'll sort of see how it all shakes out. But I do think, especially on the back line, you can never have enough bodies. Yeah. I think that loading up on D, especially at this league, is so important. So in a little bit, we are gonna I am just gonna kind of run through again what I think that both rosters should look like, and we'll have a graphic up there for you as well for our YouTube viewers as well. And again, we appreciate all of y'all. We've gotten a lot of action this week, a lot of listener comments and things, and in fact, we do have a couple of questions that fans asked us, which we will get to later on in the show as well. One other thing I wanted to just mention, they had the preseason game against Chicago. I watched pretty much the whole thing. It was on the NHL Network. If you follow us on Twitter, I said before the game started, Hunter Skinner is going to blow somebody up tonight. And then what happened? Hunter Skinner not only blew somebody up, but then Corey Perry wanted to fight him, and he said, "No, I'm not fighting you." And then Corey Perry got a penalty. So not only did he blow a guy up, but he got a power play out of it. That's the kind of stuff that we're looking for. He reminds me of Riley Stillman for those Thunderbirds fans that go back a little way. And again, a guy who's now playing NHL minutes for Vancouver. Just absolutely will not pass up on the opportunity to just absolutely smash somebody. And I do also want to give a quick shout out to our boy Ryan Smith, who was in the booth with St. Louis. He did the play-by-play for both the second and third periods on St. Louis radio. I did have a chance to talk to some of the Thunderbirds front office people who actually went down to St. Louis for, I don't know, about a week or so, maybe a little longer than that, and was able just to mingle with the St. Louis people and sort of uniting the two teams basically in the two front offices. And not only were they treated very well and had fun, but I think they learned a lot. And for Ryan's sake, he got a great opportunity there. And I've been saying it. It's not Ryan Smith is not long for the AHL. That guy will be an NHL broadcaster soon. We just need some of these old stodgy guys, Jack Edwards, to finally move aside and make room for the younger generation of broadcasters, because Ryan Smith is absolutely top notch.
He's wonderful. He's such a pleasure to listen to. I think we're a bit spoiled in Springfield to have a play-by-play at the high level and quality as Ryan Smith. He does a great job calling the games. He's informative. He's timely, very easy to listen to. And I've listened to a few AHL games, and I will keep the teams out of it, but not everyone is at his level. So keep up the good work, Ryan. We hope to have you on the show one day. And but keep up the great work. Congratulations and great calls.
And it's one of those things here in Springfield. We're lucky because I don't know, Springfield, especially in broadcasting, it's a weird spot. Like everybody seems to graduate from Syracuse Newhouse School of Broadcasting, and then they end up at 22 News for 8 months, and then they go to Texas, they go to Hartford, they go to move on to bigger markets. But the list of broadcasters in Springfield, I mean, Don Orsillo was calling games here in Springfield, and Mike Kelly was fantastic, and I can't think of his name, but he ended up now he's in San Diego. Andy Zilch was a fantastic young broadcaster who got a dream opportunity to go do hockey in San Diego. Talk about living the life, man. Out in California. So again, I don't think it's going to be long until Ryan is at the NHL level. And if you ever got a chance to talk with him, he's not only a great guy, but he's a total pro. I mean, just takes what he does so seriously, and he's an absolute pleasure. So yeah, no, I'll definitely be getting him on the show here at some point, especially once the season starts rolling on. He's full of insight, a great writer too. If you hear any of his read any of his work on the website, and don't forget to check out, he does some player interviews as well. Not like he's our competition or anything, but the Thunderbirds do have a segment on their page where Ryan interviews some players. So definitely go check that out as well. So let's see. So we do have, like I said, I want to talk about the roster situation, what it looks like. And I also want to get involved with some of the questions that we were asked. But before we do, I do want to just give a quick shout out to our friends at White Lion Brewing. The SRG podcast proudly sponsored by White Lion Brewing in their new location in Amherst on North Pleasant Street, of course, right down in Springfield at Tower Square, downtown 1500 Main Street. It's the place to go prior to Thunderbirds games, and parking, as we all know, in downtown Springfield is a bit tricky these days. Until that parking garage goes up, it's going to be real tricky. So make sure that you park in the Tower Square garage. Once you do, swing into White Lion, show them your T-Birds ticket, and they'll validate your parking for you. And then, of course, while you're there, grab some food. They got Boomer's Nachos, Seuss Mac and Cheese, Hall of Fame wings. They got a full menu along with 20-plus beers that they have. And don't forget, you can find your favorite White Lion beers in your local liquor store cooler. White Lion Brewing, now in Amherst in downtown Springfield, a proud local sponsor of the SRG podcast. And make sure when you go, you tell them that the boys from SRG sent you. So big thanks to Ray Barry and everybody over there.
You gotta love those Seuss mac and cheese. Oh,
I mean, the menu is so Springfield. It's so 413.
yes, gotta love it.
So I've had a nice long couple conversations with Ray Barry, and that guy. If anybody met him, an absolute pleasure. So we really appreciate the support we're getting from our friends at White Lion. So as I mentioned, I basically, Elite Prospects is such a good resource. And I went through what the St. Louis Blues roster currently looks like, and for YouTube viewers, we'll have a graphic up here for you. But I basically just went through the roster and divided it up as to what I think the Blues are going to look like and what I think the Thunderbirds are going to look like. And this comes to us thanks to a question that Patrice on Twitter asked. Mama Cars, one of my favorite follows on Twitter. She says, obvious question, but who is going to break into the bigs? And again, we've been talking about Dean or Bolduc. So what I have here for St. Louis, and we'll just look at guys that we know are absolute slam dunks to make the roster. Okay. At left wing, Brandon Saad, Jacob Verana, Sammy Blaze for your top three. And then you're looking at a combination of Nathan Walker, Mackenzie McEachern, Jake Neighbors. If it were me, I would put Jake Neighbors on that third line and again get him going.
Yeah.
Sammy Blaze can play some of the right side. He can also play center too, so he's a little more versatile. So your left side, your center position is basically three guys: Braden Shen, Kevin Hayes, Oscar Sundqvist. Okay, so now you're looking at Nikita Alexandrov, you're looking at Zach Bolduc, you're looking at Zach Dean as some of your other options. On the right side, it's a little bit heavier. You have Buchnevich, Jordan Kyrou, Robert Thomas, Kasperi Kapanen, and then Toropchenko. So there's 5 guys for 4 positions on the right side. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. There's 17 guys right there that should be pretty much slam dunks on the offensive side. Now, when we look at just the forwards positions for the Thunderbirds, on the left side, it's a little thin. You have Hugh McGing, Sam Bitten. You do have a bunch of left-handed centermen that can move over. As we know, Bolduc's been playing some wing here in the preseason. On the right side, it's thin too. You have Will Bitten and Matthias Laferriere. So, there is going to have to be some shifting in terms of positions because at center, we're looking at Andre Heim, Adam Gaudette, Matt Pekka, Mikhail Abramov, Kian Washkruk, Tanner Dickinson, and then Bolduc and Dean, and then the 2 Zachs. So, I know Abramov can play some wing. Washkruk can play some wing. Gaudette's and Pekka are typically centers. I don't know what you're going to get from Andre Heim. I'm not familiar with the player. This will be his first year coming over from playing in Europe. And Tanner Dickinson's always been a center. So we do have some guys that are going to have to move around, but there are some positions where, you might be a little thin on the wings on both sides if you're Springfield. Do you have any kind of takeaways or thoughts on the forward group, Matt? Or
not really. I mean, I think you said it pretty well. Last year was almost the opposite. I feel like last year's roster was a lot of wingers. This year we have a lot of centermen, and they're going to have to play on either side. I think that's a spot where, at least in the AHL, I think you're going to see the 2 Zachs having to push out and see what they can do on the wings. It's as it compares to the Blues roster, it's not an ideal situation for the Thunderbirds, I don't think, as far as, where the Thunderbirds are depleted. The St. Louis Blues have a plethora of talent there. There's, again, we said it at the top of the show, there's a lot of tough choices, a lot of figuring out that hockey minds a lot smarter than me will have to figure out, and then I'll critique and analyze it, I guess.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah,
exactly.
They're a lot smarter than me, but I'll make sure to give my opinion on it.
And it also, there's this is the kind of stuff that kind of gives me a popsicle headache when we talk about what players are eligible for waivers, how many times guys can go up and down before they're eligible for waivers, what is their contract situation, how does it affect the salary cap? But a guy like Mackenzie McEachern, I believe he's on an NHL contract. So
he's on a 1-way deal. Yeah, I think.
Yeah. So if you want to send him down, now he's got to go through waivers. Whereas a guy like Jake Neighbors doesn't. So, but you want Jake Neighbors to be up there because he's younger. So it's,
I mean, I know this is a tangent, not really where we were going with this, but you don't want Jake Neighbors coming down. I don't think he's too good of a talent. He's too young. I think. I mean, I would love to see him in Springfield. I love him. He's my son Jake's favorite player. I wonder why, but he deserves to be up there in St. Louis. He should be up there playing third line, getting as many minutes as he can. He's a good player.
I mean, that's good for your son, Jake, because that's why I grew up loving Steve Yzerman. One of the reasons, because we have the same name. But he is 21. He's 21 and he's on a cheap contract and he signed through the 24-25 season. So, as long as he's got the right mindset, if he came down here and absolutely dominated the AHL as a first line guy, and again, I brought him up earlier, but that's sort of what Florida did with Owen Tippett when we were with that organization. He was NHL ready, but they said, hey, just go down there and dominate. And when we need you, we'll call you up. So, when you're that age, maybe you're allowed to spend some more time at the minor league level, as opposed to, if he was 25, 26, I think it would be a different conversation.
Sure.
That's why I look at a guy like Alexandrov. I think Alexandrov, based on age and skill levels, ready for the NHL. Like,
do you feel though? I mean, this was kind of he did well in the AHL. He stood out, and then he was back and forth. He was pretty quiet up in the NHL though. So I don't. He really is that kind of in between kind of guy. I love him. I love him in Springfield. And he's talented. I think he was the last one, I believe, sent down last year. He was right on the cusp last year. But he would have these dominant weeks in Springfield, and then he would go up, and you didn't hear much about him in St. Louis.
Yeah, 28 games. 28 games in St. Louis last season. 7 points, which isn't a ton. But I think again he was playing bottom 6 minutes.
Yeah.
And when you're the fourth liner, when you're scratched one night, then you're the fourth liner, then you're scratched the next night, then you're the fourth liner. They were doing that with Nicky. Nathan Walker was the same guy. And then there was another guy who I can't think of his name, dominated the AHL and signed here in Springfield, got called up and never got sent back down.
Levo,
thank you, Josh Levo.
Yeah, Josh Levo. Yeah,
it was sort of the three of them that were alternating, taking turns. So there wasn't really a lot of consistency for him at the NHL level. But what I think he does bring, I mean, he had in 41 games in Springfield, 19 goals, 19 assists. So he's not going to score you 40 goals. He's not going to get you 40 assists, but he might just give you 20 and 20, which, if you're a third line center, I think I think you take that as a team.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
And again, age 23, 6'1", 176 pounds. So, I mean, a second round pick. I think that's a guy that's probably earned that spot just based on his career to this point, So as we look at the defensemen, and I know I rattled this off a little bit earlier, there's just a lot of guys, guys that are shoo-ins for St. Louis: Parayko, Torrey Krug, Justin Falk, Nick Leddy, Marco Scandella, Rob Bortuzzo. There's your top six, and then Perunovich, Callie Rosen, Tyler Tucker. I don't know how you send any of those three down, but you can't keep them all. So Tucker's earned it. Scotty P would, you can't have two Torrey Krugs. This is, again, I go back to it, but Bruins fans know you got Krug or Matt Grzelcyk. You can't have 2 5'9" defensemen. I think they need to make a call on Perunovich or Krug. I think it's very difficult to put both in your lineup. And I know where I would go. I mean, I'd try to find a trade partner for Krug, and I would get Perunovich up there as fast as possible.
Yeah, I would agree to that.
And then when we look at the D in Springfield, whether it includes Tucker or Scotty P or Callie Rosen, I think Callie Rosen's on an NHL deal too, so that would be a little tricky to send him down. But then you're looking at Matt Kessel, Josh Jacobs, who is hurt, Wyatt Kalynuk, Hunter Skinner, Marc-Andre Gaudet, Leo Loof, Anton Malmstrom, Biakabutuka, and Butchinger. Malmstrom and Biakabutuka, I think, are two guys that could find their way into the ECHL just because, again, the plethora of bodies.
Numbers. Yeah.
But it's a good problem to have if you're the St. Louis organization. And then goalies, I think it's well understood that Hofer and Bennington are going to be up. Wouldn't surprise me if they kept Malcolm Subban. But otherwise, you'd be looking at Zarenko, Malcolm Subban, Colton Ellis in Springfield, and then a guy like Will Cranley maybe in the ECHL. I don't know. I think it's the Worcester Railers or the ECHL affiliate. I might have to go check out some of their games based on this roster.
Right. I mean, if we have, I mean, well, I remember one game we went to last year, Steve, and you're in your box and you're texting me like, this is an ECHL game, injuries with St. Louis and injuries in Springfield. But you were right. There's going to be talent at the ECHL level just based on the sheer numbers of in positions of where guys need to be. If St. Louis decides not to trade a Krug or find trade partners for some of these defensemen, I agree with you. I don't know how you send any of those three guys down, but you're going to have to send Tucker down. Perunovic is going to have to come down. Who's making room for those? You're going to be sending those guys down to the ECHL. You don't want them standing up, behind Section 28 the whole season.
Right.
So they need to be playing hot because they're young and talented. The talent is there. The development is what needs to take time, and you're not developing anything standing in your, watching in your street clothes. So, the Railers might be a hot ticket this year.
Yeah, for real. And again, it's all on paper. I mean, it didn't take long last year for Tommy Cross to go down. Dylan McLaughlin goes down.
Mm-hmm.
Nathan Todd goes down. There were some holes in that Springfield roster just based on injuries, and that's an inevitable thing that's going to happen. So you got to keep those guys close by.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of a look of the roster, and again, for our YouTube videos, for our YouTube fans, you got a little bit of a glimpse of what that would look like in terms of for the visual folks. And again, feel free to check out our YouTube channel if you're just tuning in on Spotify or another streaming platform, however you are listening. We do appreciate it, but we do have different elements here to the show as well, especially on YouTube. And talk about fan interaction. We do appreciate everyone that is following us on social media, getting involved with us. We put out the feelers for questions from you, the fans. And again, if you ever have any questions, comments, things you want us to talk about, hot takes, reach out to our Facebook page, Twitter page. We're sort of all over social media. You can comment in our YouTube channel as well. So we did get a Facebook question from a long-time Springfield hockey fan, Al Arment. And this is kind of an interesting question. I'm not exactly positive how to answer it, but we'll do our best. Al asks, how big of a role does the fan support for the players help their development? You got a thought on this?
Help their development? I'm not sure. I don't know. That's a tough part to answer. How much does the fan support help in Springfield? I think drastically. I do. I've been to a few other arenas, and it's, kudos to the front office staff for selling all these tickets. But I think it's something special. And I know the numbers came out last year, and Springfield was at the top as far as tickets sold, percentage of sellouts and fan interaction. And that's kudos to the front office. I do think it helps. I mean, anyone who's played sports knows it's easier to play at home. You're more comfortable there. The place is rocking. It's loud. I can't help but think it helps. As far as the actual development of a player, I think does it maybe create a sense of, wow, if they're rocking like this in the Thunderdome, what's it like up in St. Louis? I want to get up there. Maybe there's some of that element to say, like, man, if this is what an AHL arena sounds like, what's big time sound like? And it creates that little seed in your brain of, I've got to get up there. But keep rocking, Thunderdome. You do a great job. We're loud. We get into the games. And honestly, like, it's a respectful fan base for the most part. I mean, there's always one or two in an arena, but it's a respectful, knowledgeable fan base, which makes it fun. Every time I like to move around with my season pass and I go to different areas, and I'm always trying to talk to different people, how many games you go to and this, that, and the other. And they're knowledgeable. They know what they're talking about. They get into the game. They're watching the game. They're not on their phones. They're into the game. And it has to help. So keep doing it, Thunderdome. Keep doing
Yeah.
your thing.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right from that perspective. And, you got to anticipate that a lot of these guys come from either Canadian junior hockey, where they take it very seriously. It's like football in the South, like high school football in the South. They got big arenas that are full of people. You're playing at the University of Wisconsin, or you're playing at UMass, or you're playing at Boston College. Those are loud arenas. I've been to games at Quinnipiac. They're loud games. But I do think, when we win a big game in Springfield and Kevin's interviewing Will Bitton on the ice, and how many times has he said, you guys are really loud tonight. We really needed you. The fans are great. I think that goes a long way. And, on the flip side, imagine if I don't hate to pick on them, but like, imagine if you're playing in the Wolfpack and you get one of those games where there's 4,000 fans in a 20,000 seat arena. And then next week you're playing Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
Like, that dichotomy is so different. And so there's that holy bleep moment, right? Where you're like,
sure,
I'm at MSG, and last week I was playing in front of 4,000 people at the XL Center. So I do think that there is a little bit of that. And I think that, like you said, I think that the Thunderbirds fans are smart. They're knowledgeable. They're loud when they need to be loud. And I think that does play to an advantage, especially as a home team. Another sort of element to that, I guess, to answer Al's question, when it comes to, I think Kevin Johnson touched on this a little bit when he was talking about interviewing, and he was saying, these players need to learn how to do an interview at the AHL ready, so that they're ready to do an interview at the NHL ready level. You have to learn when whether it's win or lose, the game ends, you go in the locker room, you shower up, you get your stuff, you talk to the coach, you talk to your teammates, you do a little press conference, whatever. Then you walk out and you just want to go home. You just want to go back to your place. You just want to have a burger. You want to do whatever you want to do. And there's 6 fans waiting for you with Sharpies and jerseys, and they just want to talk to you and say hi. And you have to learn, even if you don't want to do that, you have to learn that that's an important part of your development, and that, the fans appreciate win or lose. They appreciate you and what you do. And even if you're so ticked off because you had such a crap game, you still have to learn how to take the time to be with the fans. And I think that the Thunderbirds have always done a good job of getting star players involved in community events, whether it's reading books or it's, the teddy bear things. They always have them out in the community. I think for that exact point is learning how to interact with fans. I mean, some of these kids are 19, 20, 21 year old. And as a high school teacher, I could tell you some of them have no idea how to talk to grown adults. They don't. So how do you kind of learn how to communicate with people and control your own emotions? I mean, pregame, guys are walking into the game and they're in their suit and they have their headphones on and they're locked into what they're doing. And now people want to shake your hand and they want to say hi and good luck. And you have to compartmentalize and take your focus just for a minute away from what you're doing so that you can have an interaction with a fan. And I think a lot of players understand that. I've come across a handful of players that don't. And they just have no clue. And guess what? None of them have made it to the NHL.
Yeah.
So, I do think that goes a couple ways. And then lastly, as Al will appreciate, how do you handle fans that are obnoxious? Because Al, I love you, pal, but boy, oh boy, whenever at Bridgeport, is it Seth Helgeson and Madison Bowie, whenever they get penalties, Al will come down and he will stand and yell at them and berate them, and he doesn't swear at them or anything, but he's gotten under the skin of a couple of these players. How do you just ignore the noise, keep it out? I mean, some of the players that I've seen that get real emotional in the penalty box towards hecklers are not NHLers.
There's a mentality to sports. It's mind games. To be a professional athlete, it's not just a physical skill set. There's a lot of it that has to click up in your head. Hey, easier said than done, I think. But yeah, how do you block that out? You're in the penalty box. You made a bad call. You're hurting your team, and now you've got some knucklehead fan in the background yelling at you, screaming things at you. How do you tune that out? But you have to learn how to do that. And if you can't, you're AHLer for life.
Yeah. And you know, it's not even the fans, but just a couple stories on this. Like I've seen bad calls made at the AHL level, and you can handle it by getting in the box and turning around and looking at the ref and, you know, you bleep and bleep, you bleep and bleep, 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 you stink, you stuck, you suck, you don't know what you're doing. Go back to the minors. You can swear the ref up and down, right? Then I did my first game with the Bruins, and I forget, it might have been Matt Borvietsky on Ottawa. You know, he gets the penalty. He's not happy about it. He sits down. The whistle blows. He calls the ref over and he goes, boy, you're having a bad game tonight, eh? You know, and it was hilarious. And but you don't swear him up and down. You just, you make your point calmly, you know, and that the ref is going to appreciate that way more than getting sworn up and down the ice. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
So understanding, you said compartmentalizing your emotions, whether it's with the fans, whether it's with teammates, whether it's with officials, coaching staff, right? How are you able to really keep yourself in check, again, at a young age is a challenge. So, so thanks for the questions. We appreciate it. Again, the more you give us, the more we'd love to get you involved. But Al and Patrice, we really appreciate you guys reaching out to us and getting that going. Real quick, just looking ahead for the Blues. They do have another preseason game on Monday night. That is at 7:00 against the Columbus Blue Jackets. So I'm sure we will see a lot of whatever's left of Thunderbirds players. Maybe that's why there haven't been as many roster moves today as we expected, is because they're probably going to wait to try to get one more game in. And it does look like there is 2 more preseason games, if I got this correct. There is Thursday, October 5th, again against the Stars, and then Saturday, October 7th against the Blackhawks. And then their season is going to kick off the following Thursday, October 12th. So there will be 2 more opportunities for these young prospects to really get their feet wet. And it'll be interesting, like we've been talking about, to see how this roster shakes out come this time next week.
Yeah. Yep. And with the Thunderbirds opening just 2 short weeks away, we'll try to get on one more time to have one more show to discuss the final roster breakdown and to get into opening night around the AHL. But things are ramping up and things are getting exciting. That's for sure.
And of course, don't forget, as we talk about opening night, Thunderbirds do have preseason games of their own. This coming Friday, holy smokes, this Friday, they are going to host the Providence Bruins at home. 7:00 game at the Thunderdome. I'll be there. Well, as long as the Connecticut Sun don't have the WNBA finals game that night, I will be there. And then they also, they have 2 games, a home and home, basically, with Providence for the preseason. So they will definitely need some more bodies for that game. The ones that they have sent down right now aren't good enough to fill out a roster. So ideally, there will be some more roster movement between now and Friday of this week. But we are looking forward to getting our first taste of Thunderbirds hockey as the calendar turns to October here. We are ready to go. We are right on the cusp of the new season. It's awesome. So with that, we appreciate everybody listening. Again, if you want to get involved, please hit us up. Otherwise, we will come up with our own things to talk about, and that's going to be easier and easier here as we get going. And as always, we want to say thanks to our friends at White Lion Brewing. Check out their new location in Amherst, and of course at Tower Square in downtown Springfield. Fantastic local partner here in the 413. We're so thrilled to have them as a part of our operation. And again, it doesn't have to just be them. If you want to get your company involved in what we're doing here, we're more than happy to have you on board. We have other things that we're working on doing here at SRG. So the more that you can help us out, the more you want to get involved, we're happy to have you.
Absolutely. So yeah, thank you to White Lion. Thank you to all of you for listening, all the fans, and let's go T-Birds. 2 weeks.
Thanks, Matt. We appreciate it. On behalf of Matt Baker, Steve Forney, see you guys later.